Finally, we speak to Zimbabwe's ruling ZANU-PF spokesperson to get an insight on the party's annual conference scheduled for next week. And our leading story, Zimbabwe's ruling ZANU-PF's annual conference kicks off next week at a time when the country is deep in the economic crisis. Well, the ruling party has also been hit by a serious division on who will succeed the 92-year-old Mugabe. Well, this year's conference comes against the backdrop of a series of anti-government protests. In the past few months, protests became an almost daily occurrence as frustration over Mugabe's regime grew. Well, joining me in studio right now is ZANU-PF spokesperson Kennedy Mananza and political analyst Blessing Vava. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us right here on Africa Tonight. Now, starting off with you, Mr. Kennedy, to get the ball rolling. The ZANU-PF is set to host a conference just next week. Just take us through as to what is expected to take place in this conference this year.
Thank you, and good evening to your listeners. ZANU-PF is going to be holding its annual conference next week, starting from the 18th up to the 17th. And it starts with the Politburo meeting, which takes place on the 13th, followed by the Central Committee meeting, which takes a day after the Politburo meeting. But the most important thing is that the reason why we have the annual conference year in, year out, because ZANU-PF as an organization takes time to introspect, to look at things that they were supposed to do within a given year, especially coming after a Congress which took place in 2014. It is now after each year that we take time to take stock of some of the things that we have put ahead of ourselves to say, what is it that we would want to achieve? So the conference is there to allow the Central Committee to report back on the progress that have been made throughout the year. And this is what exactly will be taking place. And one of the things that the conference is responsible for is to make sure that they reaffirm a decision that took place last year after we have had a Congress and appointed the President, Araji Mugabe, as the President of the country. And now it is time to reaffirm as the conference is candidature as the sole presidential candidate for the 2018. And this is what the Constitution requires us to do, and we are going to live by that Constitution.
Now, Blessing, it is quite clear that Zimbabwe is going through a very harsh economic crisis. Now, there's questions as to how will this be financed. Do you think, is it actually very feasible for ZANU-PF to actually hold this conference?
Well, I think looking at the conference that is coming, it's clear that there is nothing much that is going to come out of that conference. If anything, it is just about to endorse President Robert Mugabe as the sole candidate of ZANU-PF. You know that President Mugabe attempted a life president in 1989. He attempted to the life president in 1989, and it failed. And now he wants a de jure life presidency. And looking at the state of the economy in Zimbabwe, it is very in a sorry state. And ZANU-PF is blowing almost $4 million towards the hosting of that conference when the country is going in economic crisis. When millions of Zimbabweans are facing starvation, you know that close to 4 million people are reportedly going to face hunger due of the drought and the rains that didn't come out properly. So for ZANU-PF to hold this annual conference, it's more like a ritual, like President Mugabe is now a spirit medium that every year we have to endorse that he's going to be the candidate of ZANU-PF in an election that is only coming in 2018. And it's very shameful that thousands of people are going to gather to endorse a 92-year-old man who is even struggling to take care of himself.
Now, Mr. Mananza, a lot of people are actually worried about the wastage of money that will go into hosting this conference. Can you perhaps take us through as to how will this conference be financed? News reports were actually alleging that people were actually rather told to actually add more money to actually host this conference. Just take us through this. How will it be financed?
It has, it has become the norm for people to look at ZANU-PF with a negative eye and a negative perception when it comes to the funding of any project that they wish to undertake. And as we speak right now, ZANU-PF is the party that is in government, and it is common knowledge to many people that ZANU-PF at the moment it is also assisting those people that are going through difficult times in terms of provision of food. And the government itself, through the initiative of the president, they've been able to give food to people. So when it comes to the funding of the conference itself, the party has its organs throughout the country, and each province is required to provide money for the conference. And this is exactly what has been done from cell, branch, district, until we get to province. So when they sit down, the organizing committee, they come up with tentative figures, which they sell to the various chairpersons and other people in the provinces, so that they can come up with money that is meant to finance the conference. There are also quite a number of well-wishers that would want to see ZANU-PF going through the conference in a manner that allows it to introspect in itself. And some of these well-wishers come up with funds to give them. And ordinarily, these well-wishers are people that are in the country, in Zimbabwe.
If I'm hearing you correctly, Mr. Mananza, so not households specifically are actually going to contribute to hosting this conference, or are they actually going to chip in money to give into, those certain districts to actually host the conference?
As members of ZANU-PF, we have an obligation to fund our own party, to fund our own programs. So we are not going to anyone who is outside ZANU-PF. We are going to our own members. Those that are able to provide whatever they have. It could be cattle, it could be money. That is most welcome, as long as a bona fide member of ZANU-PF, and part of the constitution requires me to provide something for my party, and that is what we are using in order to leverage funds from our members.
Now, Blessing, some people would actually cite abuse of power when it comes to requesting money from ordinary, party members to actually fund conferences, especially taking into consideration that Zimbabwe is going under a huge economic crisis, and a lot of people don't have money. Do you not think that people are going to actually feel obligated to actually take money out of their pockets and to actually fund this conference? Is this not abuse of power from the ZANU-PF side?
Well, I think before I respond to that question, I think we are doing Mr. Mandaza a great disfavor here, simply because I don't believe that he's actually representing ZANU-PF. I don't believe that there is a member of ZANU-PF that is currently in South Africa. As you know, that if you ask him, the time that he came here, he probably came here more than 10 years ago, running away from the economic catastrophe that Zimbabwe is facing now. So it's actually a lie that he's representing ZANU-PF. Probably he's here after the realization that Zimbabwe has now become inhabitable because of the economic crisis, because of that there are no jobs in Zimbabwe, there are no opportunities in Zimbabwe. And going back to your question, I think that you have heard media reports of ZANU-PF abusing power, forcing civil servants, especially in Masvingo, to contribute $10 each towards the hosting of that conference. You know what happened in Bulawayo when the Vice President, Pekezile Mpoko, was going around demanding that companies contribute towards the hosting of that conference. Well, there are numerous cases where ZANU-PF has been doing this, holding the necks of people to fund their conference, because ZANU-PF is a party that has clearly lost the mandate from the people. The people are not interested in ZANU-PF anymore. And they have been surviving because of coercion, because of abuse of state power, using fear and using state apparatus to force people, frog-march people to fund their conference.
Now, Mr. Mananza, President Robert Mugabe is currently 93 years old. He's very at a critical and crucial age, and the very calls are actually strengthening to have him removed from a seat. Now, moving forward in the conference, can we expect the election of a new presidential candidate and perhaps a new leadership for the ZANU-PF party? Can we expect this?
I wouldn't want to go into the narrative that he has brought that I'm not a bona fide member of ZANU-PF, because I don't think he has any jurisdiction to vet that. But let me say that in terms of ZANU-PF and the President Robert Mugabe, it is up to the people in ZANU-PF to decide when he is going to leave. And wherever the calls are coming from, those calls are ill-informed, because ZANU-PF has processes that it is supposed to follow. And those processes will be followed in order for us to have a leader of the party who will eventually become the leader of the country. So what we in ZANU-PF have to do, we will do it as ZANU-PF. And we will do it according to the constitution of ZANU-PF. And one other thing, people talk about the age of President Robert Mugabe, the sickness of President Robert Mugabe, and so on. But we also have on the sidelines of a frailly looking Morgan Tsvangirai, who people are also going around campaigning for. And surprisingly, we have heard that he has cancer. And people do not talk about him. He also wants to be the president. How could you, can't you make any comparison of the two people?
And without interrupting you, the calls to have President Robert Mugabe to remove from his seat are getting stronger, actually. Now, doesn't the ZANU-PF actually want to position themselves on the right side, on the good side of the people of Zimbabwe entirely, and to serve everyone in the country? What is the ZANU-PF doing in this into pleasing everyone in Zimbabwe? And not just particularly its parties.
ZANU-PF has an obligation to make sure that we renew leadership as and when we see it fit. And I think it is prudent on the part of anyone else who is calling us to allow us to go through that process to make sure that we eventually have a leader of our choice. And it is the choice of the ZANU-PF members and the Zimbabweans to decide who rules them and up to when. And as of now, we have the presidency of Robert Gabriel Mugabe to run until 2018. That is, he has been given a mandate for 5 years, and we want to see through that mandate. When it comes to 2018, just watch the space. You will see if we are going to have President Robert Mugabe, that's the choice of us in ZANU-PF. If we are going to renew, let it both be done constitutionally.
I think the most unfortunate part is that we are now in the digital era. And for me, I think President Mugabe is still an analog president in a digital era. And it's quite unfortunate that we have people who still think that there is anything that a 93-year-old a person will do for them. Well, come on. President Mugabe can't even operate a smartphone. In this day and era, surely you can't expect him to turn around the economy that has failed. Only the day before yesterday, he was presenting a so-called SWANA, where virtually he spoke nothing about the economic recovery of this country. They talk of Zim asset, that was the campaign manifesto of ZANU-PF in 2013. But
now,
there's nothing really that we can do, the tangibles that ZANU-PF has achieved.
In your view, Blessing, who do you think perhaps would be able to actually take up the seat after President Robert Mugabe? Just one candidate that you think would be more fitting for this position.
I think that is the responsibility of the people of Zimbabwe to choose a leader of their own choice. I have my own preference, but I think that should be held to the people. Because Zimbabwe is a constitutional democracy, and Zimbabwe should participate in a free and fair election to elect a leader of their choice.
Well, gentlemen, I will have to cut our debate right there. Thank you so much for joining us right here on Africa Tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us in studio. Well, that was Kennedy Mandanza, ZANU-PF spokesperson, and Blessing Vava, who is the Zimbabwe political analyst from Wits University, speaking more on the ZANU-PF conference, which kicks off next week, also touching on the serious divisions within the party. Now, Africa Tonight takes a very short break. When we come back, though, we find out why the world's tallest mammal is facing extinction.
is Cindy Mabi, and for the past 15 years, I've had the honor of interviewing prolific South Africans in business, politics, and